Hello, and welcome to True Crime Talk with Charlie Crimebuster. Hi, I'm your host, James Buckland. I'm the producer of the show, and we're going to be introducing Charlie Crimebuster here in just a moment. He's there right there on the upper right of your screen. And if you would please sit back and listen as we share with you about Charlie Crimebuster, how it was started, what we do, and how we support our men and women of law enforcement, first responders, and our military. So if you would, please sit back and enjoy the podcast. And Charlie, take it away and tell us what we're really all about.
Well, James, I do want to get into that, but, first we have to take the time to let everybody know what a beautiful day it is here in Florida with that wonderful 70, 80-degree weather that feels so good. Just kind of rub it into
There you go.
all those folks that are out there, still facing cold weather and
So,
snow and all that sort of thing. So they can come on down to Florida, right?
that's right.
And
That's
join
right.
us down here. We got a lot of people that are. So we welcome
Absolutely.
all of our listeners from all over the world. And we do, of course, invite you to come to Florida. But we are excited about kicking off this another phase of Charlie Crimebuster, where we kind of talk about some of the things that we have been covering. Gives us an opportunity to kind of dive a little deeper than we're possibly do during our regular program. As you know, our program is very fast-paced and hard-hitting. So this just gives us an opportunity to slow down a little bit and talk about it. So I'm excited about it, James.
Awesome. Well, here's some things we're going to be talking about, just so that everybody can kind of see what's coming up. We're going to we give our introductions. We have Charlie Crimebuster and myself, James, and just the producer of the show. And then we're going to show you who we are, so that people know that there's other facets of just Charlie Crimebuster. And then we're going to be talking about some of the true crime issues that are going on right now, a trial, in fact, and we'll recap on that. And then Charlie's going to explain to you why we share with you the Crazy Crook story. And then we'll discuss some previous podcasts and some updates to those as well. And then we'll talk about the Internet of Things and Scam Alerts that we actually co-produce with Charlie Crimebuster to kind of keep you aware of what's going on in the tech world. And then we'll have a discussion about our future podcasts and future true crime talks. And then some final tips and some takeaways. So to kick it off, here's who we are. This is who we are right here. CharlieCrimebuster.com, PeacemakerNetwork.com, and on YouTube, brand spanking new, YouTube.com. You can get us at Charlie Crimebuster. And there's the links right there for you. So you can get to either of those sites. The one in the middle, which is the Peacemaker Network, you can go there and you can support us for as little as $3 a month. I'm an avid supporter of this. I believe in this, and I'm a contributor for this, have been since we started it. And I believe that everyone should make some type of contribution to help us further help our heroes. And Charlie, kind of recap, you do such a great job on recapping why we do the Peacemaker Network.
Well, James, I think it's really great because a lot of people have said, how can we help? How can we be a part of the podcast? And we love that. The best way you can be part of the podcast is just to get the word out there and share the episodes and continue to see this great audience grow that we're seeing that's growing at this particular point. But more than that, we have an opportunity. I always call it in our program, you probably have heard me say it over and over, it's those brave men and women who run toward danger instead of away from danger.
And
by that, we're talking about our law enforcement, our first responders, and of course, the brave men and women of military. And so what we try to be, James, is basically a bridge of communication. We want to be able to bring to these important heroes resources that are available to them. I don't know whether you read it or heard about it, James, and maybe I'm sure some of our listeners and those that are part of the program right now already know about it. Just over the weekend, while we released our very first podcast, our last podcast, I should say, last Sunday, unfortunately, two brave officers, a sheriff's deputy and a police officer, lost their life in New York. And all they were doing was just doing their job. Right. They were following up and walking up on a house. I've done that hundreds of times in my work in law enforcement, but you never know what you're going to face when you do that.
That's right.
And so it is a very stressful job. It's a very dangerous job. And we're very proud at Charlie Crimebuster to have PeacemakerNetwork.com, which is a platform where others can support these brave men and women. And so every time somebody hears a Charlie Crimebuster episode, they're going to hear about peacemakernetwork.com, because we're committed to support these folks. And I know a lot of people out there are as well. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to push that again, James, to our wonderful people that are a part of the Charlie Crime Train, I call it.
There we go. All right. So let's talk about let's move on and talk about what's going on in today's news. We have some things that are going on right now, and I was actually looking at some of the videos earlier today, and it's rather interesting as some of the, not only the witnesses, but some of the cross that the defense is actually putting on. So let's talk about what's in the news right now.
Well, of course, the big thing is the Chad Daybell trial, and this has been like 4 or 5 years coming. You know, I think he's been in jail now for 4 years, so this is something that a lot of people certainly have been waiting for. As you know, James, we got on this case even beyond 4 years ago.
That's right.
When it was first happening. In fact, we were talking about this case when they didn't even know where the children were, and they, you know, that some people were thinking that they were hid away at some sort of conference center or some sort of cult following farm or something like that. And unfortunately, sadly, it was one of those predictions that I made way back then that I wish I was wrong about. But I had mentioned that I was pretty sure that these children have been murdered, and unfortunately they have. So this is a huge case. I mean, it's one that has a national interest. Not, I wouldn't say national, but international interest. About, of course, Lori Vallow. Her trial's already over. She got life sentence without the possibility of parole. But the difference about this one, James, which I think really is unique, and that certainly has my attention, and I'm sure a lot of attention, a lot of people out there, is the fact that the death penalty is on the table with Chad Daybell. It was not on the table with Lori Vallow. And one of the reasons why it wasn't on the table was because they had to move that trial forward, because her attorney said, we want to go to trial. They had not released all of the discovery that they had, mounds and tons of text between them. And because of that, the judge felt that in fairness to her, that they would take the death penalty off the table. But on this one, the death penalty is on the table. And we asked our audience every week, what do you think? Do you think Chad Daybell will get the death penalty over this or not? So right now, we're just doing kind of a week-by-week view of the trial, trying to keep people updated on what's happening. Last week, we talked about, it was actually the grandfather of little JJ. JJ, who was 7 years of age, beautiful young man who unfortunately was killed by this duo of death. And
if I remember correctly, you called out the spiritual hitman.
Oh yeah,
Alex back
Cox,
in May of
right?
2020.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And of course, they're making, you know, this is the trial is facing this. It's going to be emphasizing that Alex Cox was a part of all this. But Alex Cox, I termed it, I said Lori's spiritual hitman, because these guys, both Chad and Lori, they actually duped Alex Cox into thinking that he was doing God's work, and he became their hitman to take out not only the children, but both of their spouses, you know.
Right.
But that's a fascinating case. I just, I'm amazed at how this case has played out. And I think we're going to find some really interesting things that's going to come up in the trial that maybe did not even come up with Lori Vallow's trial.
But do you know of any others that are scheduled for to come up on the stand for the prosecution? And also, are we aware of any of the witnesses for the defense?
Well, I think one of the things we're going to see in the coming days is there's going to be a lot of focus on the digital footprint that these folks left, and I think that's a little different today in today's trials and some of the past trials. And yesteryear, you know, you'd always have somebody come in with fingerprints. You'd always have somebody come in with that kind of evidence or ballistic evidence. But what's different today, James, is is there's a lot of digital evidence.
Right.
It was digital evidence that really helped find the children,
That's right. That's right.
because they followed the cell phone of Alex Cox, and they lined it down to when the children were last seen. And after the children were last seen, they followed that cell phone to places on Chad Daybell's property. That's how the children were found. So one of the fascinating things about this trial is that we've moved now from just the old time of finding fingerprints and ballistic evidence into the digital world, where we're actually following their presence, but we're also following what is said between the two people. Now, they use burner phones, but what people don't realize is that once they find that burner phone, they're going to be able to unearth or at least reveal millions or thousands of texts between these people. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that in the days ahead. And I think that's going to be the thing that really impacts a jury, how these folks tried to hide it. They had murder phones, and they used all kinds of codes, to say one thing that meant another thing. But they're going to have some experts that's going to be on the trial that's going to open the jury's eyes to exactly what these people were saying and what they were doing.
It's going to be also interesting how the defense is going to play, how they're going to at least contest some of those claims. So it's going to be a very, very interesting trial.
Yeah. Well, as we said last week in the podcast, and they haven't listened to that yet, I hope you'll go back, folks that are listening. I hope you'll go back and pick up that podcast that we just dropped. But this was round 1 and round 2. JJ's grandfather said he used the analogy of a boxing ring, and right. in one corner we have the prosecutor, in the other corner we have the defense, and the prosecutor, of course, comes out really swinging and saying what a terrible person Chad was, and then the defense comes around, and we can see right off the bat that they're going, and I know, James, you've heard me use this. It's called the sod defense,
Yep.
Some other dude, S-O-D, some other dude. So they're going to, the defense, in my opinion, they're going to really, really spend a lot of time placing all this on Alex Cox. Now, no doubt he did it. I believe he did the killing. He did the dirty work. But what is tied to it is that he was actually motivated, urged, and led on by a conspiracy. And that conspiracy was Lori and Chad enlisting him into doing these evil dudes. But what the defense is going to do, they're going to try to say, hey, no, it's just Alex Cox. Alex Cox always protected his sister, and he did. Even back before she met Chad Daybell, with one of her husbands, a guy by the name of Joseph Ryan. And right. he was one of her husbands. She's had so many husbands, I can't even keep up with them. But I think he was the second or third husband. And there was a custody battle going on at that time. And Alex Cox, her brother, actually met him, shot him with a stun gun, and threatened to kill him. Now, that was years before this all came to be. So right. What the defense is going to do, they're going to go back. They're going to introduce that. I guarantee you that's going to be introduced into the whole body. And they're going to say to these jurors, here is the person, Alex Cox. He always protected his sister. And anytime his sister needed anything done, she would do it. And he was looking out for her. And they're going to try to say that Alex Cox did this all upon himself without the interference. And they're going to say that Chad Daybell just really didn't know what was going on. I believe that's the way that you're going to see the defense picture this, and I believe this is the way the defense is going to play the jury.
I agree. I certainly agree. Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm anxious to hear the next episode, see what you've uncovered thus far from the trial of this week. So it's going to be
well. One of the things about it, we're all busy people, James. All of us. You're busy. I'm busy. Everybody's busy. Thank you, James, for opening this up for Charlie Crimebuster to have a YouTube channel, because we've been wanting to do this. And we're really behind in doing it. We should have done it a long time ago, and we're already seeing tremendous response to it, aren't we?
We are.
But what I'm saying is, even the judge has his YouTube channel that he's broadcasting this thing on. So a lot of people don't have time to do that, but don't worry about it. James and I, we got your back.
That's
We're
right.
going to be able. We're going to keep you updated week by week, and so next Sunday when we drop the next episode, you're going to know the important things that happened this past week in the trial.
That's
And
right.
I think it's really an honor and privilege to keep our crime trained family briefed on what's happening.
You share with us a crazy crook story. What's the purpose behind the crazy crook story?
Well, first of all, I just love them. They're so entertaining, and but the reason why we use this as a bridge as we go from one portion of our episodes to the other is it gives the audience an opportunity to just sit back and relax a little bit because unfortunately we share a lot of terrible stuff. That's what crime is all about.
Right.
In our podcast this last week we talked about the fact that there was something that happened in the courtroom that actually visibly upset Chad, and he was actually, according to spectators, was seen
Shaking.
trembling,
Yeah.
trembling. I
Yeah.
called it shaking in his boots.
Shaking in
And
his
what it
boots.
was those terrible, terrible pictures of these children who were mutilated and just treated like trash and buried there. And that's really dark stuff. So
It
what we
is.
try to do is with our crazy crook story, we like to say, hey, time out, hold it, take your breath. Let's talk about something that I know will make you laugh because these crazy crook stories, uh, as you and I have said, they just can't make it up. It's just
You can't make it up.
it
That's right.
incredible, incredible, and as I was a police officer out on the road, I saw crazy stuff like that, and I thought, good night, these guys are dumb and crazy, and
Uh-huh.
and they really are. And the other thing we want to say as kind of I guess a subtle way is we want to say that the bad guys aren't the smart guys. The smart
That's right.
guys are the good guys. The smart guys are the people who protect themselves. At the end of our podcast, you always hear me say, "Be safe, be alert for the life you save, maybe your own."
Hmm.
And the reason we say that is we hope that people, as a result of Charlie Crimebuster and the crime stories we tell, we hope that they're going to be a much more safer group of people because they've learned about the evil that's out in the world. They've learned that there are bad guys out there. They've learned that you can get hurt, you can get killed, and you need to be responsible for your safety. James, when I was a police officer, nobody ever called me very often before the fact. It was always after the fact. It
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
after somebody had been assaulted. It was after somebody had been stabbed, after somebody had been shot, after something had happened.
Hmm.
So some people have a false security that law enforcement is going to be able to protect you and save you. Well, law enforcement is law enforcement. It is enforcing the laws.
Right.
Police officers can't be everywhere all the time. So we're hoping that the things that we share, from the crazy crook story on down to some of the things that we share in our episodes, will help our people be safer and to remind them that the crooks are the bad guys and they're crazy and they're stupid. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of take a dig at the bad guys, I guess I'm saying.
That's right. Well, speaking of the bad, here's some of the shows that we've actually had where we've
Yeah.
shared many of the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So some of these shows, some of them have updates. I'm sure that there's one with Alec Baldwin coming up here. We've got Gabby Petito that I understand you mentioned in a conversation you and I had about
Yep. Right.
there's going to be a possible suit there from the family of Gabby Petito against um,
Actually going to be against the police department of Moab.
uh-huh.
And the Moab police were the ones that first pulled over Gabby there on the road when they were having a domestic spat. And I'll follow you there. We won't even use his name. His initials is Brian. But
Yeah.
when they were having their spat, the police department stopped them. He was doing erratic driving. They had already had a complaint of a domestic violence, possible assault. They pulled them over. And I'll tell you, man, I've done traffic stops before, but this traffic stop I think lasted over an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. and 30 minutes. And as a result of it, what they did is they really did not know who was the aggressor in the domestic situation that they had. And so they just ended up separating the two.
Right.
In other words, they took him, put him up in a motel somewhere. She got to keep the van and stay in their van that they had equipped for camping and for traveling. And then they hooked up the next day. So the family now is coming against the Moab Police Department and saying that they did not do enough during that traffic stop, that they should have taken other steps to keep Gabby safe. And boy, that's going to be. I think we're going to see that, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out. So that's the update on the Gabby Pito. Now, also, I think we mentioned. Well, I know this week with Alec Baldwin, we've already done episodes on him, and we will be doing some new episodes on him. But just this week we've heard that the armorer, that she actually got the heaviest sentence that she could get.
Yeah, I heard.
For her participation in that.
Right.
Which surprised a lot of people. I mean, it's it's not like 10 years or 5 years, but it's almost, I think, I forget how many months it was, but whatever it was the heaviest sentence that they could impose by the court. So to me, James, I think that means that's not good news for Alec Baldwin.
No, it's not.
Because if they saw her at fault at it, those same prosecutors now have Alec Baldwin in their crosshairs. Exactly. And they're going to go after him. They're going to try to put him in jail. And, the question is, some people say money talks. Does he have, high-powered attorneys? Are they going to be able to get him out of that? So that's going to be another really interesting case to follow, don't you think?
It will be. It certainly will be.
And this is the first time that there's ever been a successful prosecution in a case like this, where people who have been responsible for the safety of others on a movie set have actually been prosecuted successfully. So that really made history.
Yeah, I'm going to say historical right there. Yeah.
Yep, no doubt about it. Yeah. And then, don't forget, I mean, I'm looking at the back at your at all these. We got Brian Kohlberger coming up.
Right.
I mean, and we followed that case right from the very start, even before they even had that suspect. Charlie Crimebuster. We were on the case. We were looking for this guy, and
spot on.
Pardon me. We were trying to get the public to help find him, and that's another great thing about a podcast is we have a great crime family that can actually get involved in helping to solve, or at least getting the word out, to try to catch people like this terrible person who allegedly killed these people.
Yeah, you impressed upon people to look for that white car.
Yep, we did, and we and I know we had. I'm sure we had a group of people that did that, and that's one of the exciting things about having a podcast family, is that we can all work together to fight for justice for these victims.
That's right.
So, well, I'm looking at this. Our updates coming up, and there's just some exciting things coming down the road.
There are, and I think you mentioned in last week's podcast about an update on the Menendez brothers, and so.
Oh yeah, well, actually, you brought that to my attention. I had not really found that, but you and I, we talk crime all the time, and that rhymed, didn't it? Crime all the time. We talk crime all the time, and man, now they've brought up the fact, because there was a letter written before their trial, and because there's another person come forth that says that the father of the Menendez brothers actually sexually abused them. And of course, that doesn't mean that if you've been abused, that you have the right to get out and get a gun and kill people that abuse you. But it does somewhat, help people understand that people react to those things, and sometimes they think that's the only way that can defend themselves. So the bottom line is, it could happen. It could be that they're going to get a new trial. It's
very
not
possible.
It's possible. I guess that's as far as we can go there. Yep.
What we're going to do is I can introduce now the Internet of Things, which is all the devices that touch, and as I have here in the diagram, the cloud. So in other words, when you like your TV, you can talk to your TV by way of your phone, by way of your Wi-Fi, by way of your computer. Alexa's integrated with many of our devices where we can tell the lights to turn on or turn off. We're telling devices to turn on or turn off, clocks, radios. You can set up your airline tickets through all different types of means by just using electronics. And these devices are Internet of Things, and they're all connected. So we're going to be sharing some stories and some concerns about the Internet of Things and how to keep you safe when it comes to these devices. And there's something else we also share every week, which is a scam alert, which is the area that I'm responsible for in the podcast. And I wanted to make everybody aware that on May the 7th of 2025, you must have a real ID. So you'll have to make certain that you have that little star on the upper right-hand corner, as you see here, that I'm circling. You have to make sure that you have that star on your ID as of May the 7th, 2025. But there will be those looking to scam you. There'll be phishing. There's a phishing campaign going on to target people by text and email by urging you to update your personal information to them. And it's all related to the Real ID, because Real ID is going to be instantiated, and there'll be penalties if you don't do it. And that's May the 7th, 2025. You have to have Real ID.
Hey, James, let me ask you
yes.
on that too. I've heard that you and I think I read somewhere that is really critical, because as of a certain time, and maybe this is the time you're talking about here, you cannot get on an airplane unless you have that license as an ID for you, right? Isn't that correct? So
you're right. It will hamper
people
your
that
travel.
are flying. Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely. So here's talking about the future now. We just put, again, as you can see, these are subject to change. I said it in both columns, but these are what's coming up. So the people that are, if you're listening and you're watching, you can see that we have things scheduled coming up. You'll be able to see what's going on with Charlie Crimebuster in the next coming weeks. And you can see that down there, the TBD, to be determined. And so there are, as crime happens, we're on top of it, and we'll be exposing it and sharing it with you. So just if you want to, Charlie, share with us what you anticipate for this week 2 of the Chad Daybell trial.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. I do want to just digress just a quick moment. James, your scam alerts have just been right on target. I mean,
thank you.
I'm learning a whole lot from that. And I think it's really important, because just like we talked about in the trial of Chad Daybell, that things now we're looking at different sides. We're looking at digital evidence. We're looking at all kinds of new types of crime fighting tools that we have with the digital world.
Right.
In the same token, unfortunately, the bad guys, they develop too, and they get even other ways to scam us, to take advantage of us, and even to cause harm. And so these talks are right on. And thank you for what you're doing. I know I speak on behalf of the crime family that you bring us really good stuff that we need to be aware of. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Getting into our summary on the trial, we're going to have more and more now. We're going to see that the prosecution is going to zero in on trying to convince this jury that Chad Daybell is not just some guy who was suddenly scammed himself, and that this beautiful woman and her brother just took advantage of him. I think we're going to see some things, and I know we're going to see some things that are going to be introduced as we go along, that's going to show the responsibility of Chad Daybell, and that's the real focus that the prosecution has to take, because not only do we know that the defense is going to come around and say, hey, Alex Cox is the guy, right, he's the one responsible for all this, but not only do you and I know that, the prosecution knows that. And so they're going to do their very best these next few weeks to say, no, Chad Daybell is the one responsible. So I think we're going to see that, right on up. We are going to, of course, have a change. One of the things that we will say to our listeners that's different, in Lori Vallow's trial, once the prosecution rested their case the defense did not put on a defense. They don't
Mhm.
have to put on a defense. They're not required to put on a defense.
Exactly.
What they did was they just attacked the prosecution and tried to say that the prosecution, that there's reasonable doubt not to convict. Well, I guess Chad's attorney took a little lesson from that one and said, no, we're gonna put on a defense. We're gonna tell the story. And
Right.
that story is going to be what we've said before, that he was just he's a good man and he was just led astray. But in my opinion, this man allegedly is an evil man. And I think we're going to see that in today's head. The Menendez brothers, we're going to keep them updated on that. And then, of course, as we said earlier in the program, Alec Baldwin, that trial is going to come to be too. James, I would like to take a moment. We do say to the folks that they can contact us because they may have some ideas of some things that they would like for us to cover, right?
Absolutely.
And we want to certainly listen to you because you guys out there, we have actually done episodes that people have come to us about and say, hey, we'd like to have an episode on this. And we would certainly welcome that. And you can reach me, James. You can tell them what they need to do to get a hold of us and all that good sort of things. But it's just been really a joy to be able to sit down and talk with our family, right?
It is. It is really a joy. You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. If you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.